So,
all right, shout out to Paul and Cindy. We're here, finally.
Finally got a moment to take a break and enjoy a good meal. Though it's kind of strange, Pete, so it doesn't sound very Mexican, but we'll give it a shot.
We'll let you know.
Here we go. Okay, beef enchiladas, shredded beef enchiladas. Chips are all gone. And of course, chicken fajitas that Judy's got. Yum. Hey, good morning, guys. I just had to film this. You don't see this very often where the valley just fills up with little fog clouds coming down nice and low. It's really quite a nice view to wake up to this morning. I'll flip around so I can show a better view. Here we go. Of course, the backside of the Manzanos there. Have a little dusting of snow for the season. Melts pretty fast, but we can enjoy it while we get it. Hi guys, Thane and Judy here. Judy's across the way, wandering around, still getting settled in. At least furniture and all the good stuff's starting to find a home here in Mountain Air as a new home. And we're going to talk today about kegerator. One of the nice things we enjoyed while we were moving in is, even though it's cold here, it's also a very dry climate at times. So went through almost all the rest of the beverages we had there. Still have a little of the black cherry seltzer in there, but I think we'll finish that up any day now. Anyway, so that means we have to do some brewing. So what we're going to do next is, right below me, you see this big 14-gallon fermentation tank there. And I've got 10 gallons of treetop apple cider or apple juice there from Costco. And we are going to do, basically separate it at kegging time and add two different flavors to each, a different flavor to each keg. Judy likes guava, I love pineapple. So we're going to do some hard cider, but we're going to do the fermentation initially in this one big fermentation tank, which is a 14-gallon tank. And so we're only using 10 gallons of juice. So we're going to let it all ferment together, and then we'll pull Judy's batch out, 5 gallons of it first, after a week or so of fermenting, and keg hers. And then my batch, I'm going to add like another pound or so of some sugar to it and let it ferment another few days, possibly a second week. We'll just watch it carefully and see how it does. But that's for the purpose of bumping up the alcohol content in the pineapple cider. And this making of cider is a very easy task, and I'm going to go through and thoroughly show each of the steps in this video. So if you have the itch to try it yourself, you'll see how simple it is and how straightforward. And so here's the Costco treetop, 10 gallons altogether here. Cost us, including our local tax, about $60 or so. And here's a close-up view of the tank. And we'll have our sterilizing compound to clean it. And of course, to monitor the fermentation, we'll put a little one-way valve here in the top here when we get going. And you have a nice little rubber gasket around the up top side of the tank here, and then you clamp it down, and of course nice good strong handles there to transport it, and a little spout at the bottom here to help transfer the cider or beer, in our case cider, that will be fermenting. Okay, so let's get started to make some hard cider here. So I've got the 10 gallons of apple juice treetop from Costco. We paid about $60 including tax for those 10 gallons. They're down on the floor below me here. And Then I got the big 14-gallon fermentation tank. We're going to try it for the first time. It's just been sitting idle in my office, and I haven't done a big batch like this of 10 gallons or more. They've all been smaller batches of around 5 gallons, so this should be fun. So what we're going to do first is get this and the associated parts that we'll be using sterilized with some star sand, about 1 ounce to I think 2 or 3 gallons of water. Just follow the directions. I sometimes make it stronger than whatever the directions call for. I'm trying to be a little more conservative and make sure I kill whatever might be there. So I'll go ahead and get everything cleaned in the sink behind me here, and everything's a nice constant 72 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about ideal for for these basic fermentation types that we'll be doing. Also got enough of Jack Cider yeast M02, enough for 10 gallons to 12 gallons, and we'll be adding both of these to the tank when it's time. And then I also have a specific gravity measurement device here. Right now it's floating. There's a little bob inside of this and some regular water, and kind of looks like this. And they designed these so that when you put them in water, the little measurement numbers show in here. Give you kind of up close picture here. Like right here, it'll say 1.000, and that's where it usually should float if it's in just a water little bath like this. So what I'll do is this measurement, the first one's usually in the denominator, and in the numerator will be the alcohol specific post-fermentation measurement you take, and you just take the ratio of the two to calculate your alcohol content. So we're going to do one batch fermenting at first, even though we're going to break it into 2 separate batches later when we're ready to keg it. We also have flavoring. Pineapple for me. Judy loves guava, so each of us will get one of these in our keg at the time that we keg it. And so I'll also show this too. One of the things that's interesting about this little fermentation tank is it's got the nice little ball valve here built in that you can open and close to pour out your beer or cider in our case. Opens like so. I built a little dispenser to help, a little right angle thing here, but I can screw it on, have it pointing down, even have an extra little cap on the bottom if I want to stop anything from possibly coming through, along with the ball valve shut off. But this will help me when it's time to actually put it in the keg. It'll shoot right down into the keg nice and cleanly. So let's do our first step and get everything sterilized and clean before we add the apple juice. I'm just going to show how easy this is to get hard cider created at home with your own nice little batch. that is all there is to cleaning and prepping. So all we need to do next is make sure this ball valve's closed. And just to take a extra safety precaution, I like to put a little cork, little guy in it just in case while we're doing this. Just hand tighten, it's good enough. Anyway, let me take the camera over. So I got the lid sterilized too, both sides of it. Put it on in here in a minute. There might be a little residual sanitizer in here, but there's nothing wrong with having a little bit. I'll just try to empty it out really good here as best I can. But you can still see a little bit of little sanitizing bubbles, which is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of leave it right here. There's our treetop apple juice, all 10 gallons. I'm just going to put them in here, add the yeast, give it a little stir, seal it, put the little one-way gas release valve. This is very important too, because as it bubbles, that tells you the fermentation process is going on. CO2 is being released. And then you can see the activity going on, and after a few days to a week, it should come to a gradual stop. And that's when you know you're pretty much done converting the sugar to alcohol. And like I mentioned earlier, we're going to do kind of 2 steps here, which is a little different. We're going to make the first week and fill up the keg with Judy's at about what I'm anticipating 4 to 5% alcohol. And then the remaining half of the batch, the remaining 5 gallons, we're going to put a little more sugar in it and try to see if we can get a higher alcohol content. And I've got some priming sugar left over from a prior attempt where I didn't bottle it, so I didn't need the priming sugar. But we'll put it to use on this and the other little pack of sugar I got and try to boost the alcohol in my pineapple cider, see if we can get a little more kick to it. And we'll ferment it for another few days to a week, maybe a second week or so, and see how that turns out. And again, we'll measure the specific gravity, comparing the two. And I'm going to get this in here, take some of the cider to measure the specific gravity again, see how close it is to water, and that'll be our starting point, and see where we go with making some hard cider here. Guava for Judy and pineapple for me to keg up. You've heard of two-fisted eaters or drinkers. Well, you can also do the two-fisted pours. So with a little over half the cider, treetop cider in, I'm going to add both of these packs at this point so they kind of blend naturally as I'm pouring things in. And this cider yeast, you can get it at your local brew store usually. I'll note that you don't need cider yeast to make this happen and get the fermentation process going. You could use ordinary, what is it, Fleischer's bread yeast, but it will have a little bit of a different taste to it. This is more focused, this yeast breed here they use is more focused to bringing out the flavors of the cider. So this might prove to be a little better solution to taste properly, make for a better cider. So I'll show what it looks like with the yeast going in now to the tank. It's just floating in there. So I'll pour the next 4 gallons or so, the remaining 4 gallons. And then we'll be ready to cap it off and seal it and get going with our fermentation process. So that's really the bulk of what we do. I'll show you what 10 gallons up close looks like. And it shows pretty close to the 10-gallon mark there, just a little under. I'm not sure why, but it is 10 gallons in these Costco treetop. Even says right there, 1 gallon times 10 of them that we just did. Anyway, I'll get the cap on, seal it, and get the little one-way CO2 release valve in there. And just a second, we'll And I'll show the one way you can do a test here to make sure you got a nice sealed lid on whatever kind of tank or carboy or whatever you're using is. If you can, once you get this one-way release valve in here, you can put a little pressure on it and watch and see if you get a little bubbles there. That means you get a good tight seal down around here. So that's a good thing. Now we just got to wait, usually about 24 hours before it starts taking off, and you start seeing some real fermentation going on. So we'll check back then and see how it's coming along. Cheers. And here we are, barely around 12 hours into this, and we have a little fermentation started. See that little bubble? There we go. Check again when we're a little further along and see how crazy it gets. And here we go. Now it's going, releasing the CO2 gas much more frequently, so we know chemistry's going good there. We're fermenting. Let's just keep it up for a while. Woohoo! Look at this baby go. We're really kicking off a lot of CO2 gas here. Just get up real close so you can see it going crazy. Thank you for watching an episode of Nature Preserve Life in Mountain Air, New Mexico. If you'd like to follow along and support our channel, please press the subscribe button and gong that bell to be notified. After all, it's free. Free is a very good price. In the future, we will plan to focus our episodes on our eco-friendly build of earthen construction and dark night astronomy, that big guy there, and tourism of the regional area, as well as establishing a Patreon account for the sole support of wildlife in Deer Canyon Preserve. So stay tuned. Cheers.